Chapter 13. The Elder. Elder Sun stood perplexed before his herb garden. Something was terribly wrong. Not only had the blue thread grass withered, but even the purple night flowers across the path showed signs of decay, though not quite as severe. He distinctly remembered how vibrant and lush these medicinal herbs had been at noon. How could they have deteriorated so dramatically in just one afternoon? Kneeling down, he carefully examined a withered blade of blue thread grass. His spiritual sense revealed that the plant had been completely drained of moisture. Furrowing his brow, he touched the soil. It was perfectly moist, ideal for herb cultivation. This anomaly troubled him deeply. After a moment of contemplation, his eyes flickered with realization. Only one outer disciple visited this afternoon. But how could a mere registered disciple cause these herbs to wither? Determined to investigate, Elder Sun swept his sleeve through the air. His body lifted gracefully as 7-colored auspicious clouds materialized beneath his feet. In mere moments he glided from the main courtyard to the outer disciples' administrative area. "Who is in charge here?" His voice boomed like thunder, causing the yellow-robed disciple Yu to bolt from his quarters. The disciple's face drained of color as he dropped to his knees, frantically kowtowing. Elder Sun's brow furrowed with impatience. "Do you have Wang Lin's registration records?" Disciple Yu's heart skipped a beat. He never imagined that such an esteemed elder would personally inquire about someone he had considered worthless. Terrified as he recalled his past mistreatment of Wang Lin, his face turned ashen. "Why, yes, Elder. We have Brother Wang Lin's records. He's always been diligent and meticulous in his work. I've always looked up to him as a role model." Elder Sun found himself caught between amusement and exasperation, though secretly pleased. The disciple's nervousness reflected the respect his position commanded, though in truth, being elder of the Heng Yue Sect wasn't particularly prestigious. All second-generation disciples were elders, at least to the outer disciples. Inner disciples typically addressed them as junior uncle instead. Despite his elder status among outer disciples, he held little standing among his peers and ranked among the weakest of the second generation. Even third-generation disciples privately looked down upon him. Why else would he be assigned the trivial task of managing outer disciples' home visit applications? Maintaining a stern expression, Elder Sun demanded, "Which courtyard houses Wang Lin?" He resides in the Northern Earth secondary courtyard." Before Liu could finish, Elder Sun transformed into a streak of rainbow light and vanished northward. Disciple Yu's anxiety intensified. He bitterly regretted his past behavior, silently vowing to treat Wang Lin with utmost respect should they meet again. After all, Wang Lin had caught an elder's personal attention. He must be someone of significance. Upon reaching the Earth's secondary courtyard, Elder Sun's spiritual sense detected no trace of Wang Lin. After a brief pause, he checked the registration office and located Wang Lin's room number. He found only Shang Hu there, snoring soundly, completely oblivious to the elder's presence. After a thorough spiritual scan of the room, Elder Sun frowned and muttered. He left quickly. "No matter, I can examine him upon his return." Meanwhile, Wang Lin traversed the mountain paths, the celestial talisman attached to his leg. True to its miraculous nature, warm energy flowed from the talisman into his body, concentrating in his feet and emanating brilliant white light. From a distance, he truly resembled an immortal. Wild beasts fled at the sight of the white radiance, keeping their distance. Fresh mountain breezes caressed his face as he strode forward. His heart lightened, his steps swift as he followed the familiar route home. The night passed uneventfully. At dawn he took a sip from his gourd of spring water. Refreshed, he looked back to find he had cleared the mountain forest. The county town lay just ahead, and beyond it the path to his village. Without delay he pressed on. By the time the sun fully rose, he entered the bustling market town. After a quick tour to purchase gifts for his parents, he hurried onward. By late morning Wang Lin finally reached his village. From afar he spotted the red banners adorning his family home, each bearing the character for longevity in bold calligraphy. Numerous carriages lined the entrance, with crowds of people coming and going in celebration. Wang Lin paused briefly before approaching. His dramatic arrival appearing in a flash of white light stunned the relatives gathered for the birthday celebration. Admiration filled their faces as they showered him with praise. Second brother Wang Lin's back. Look at him, such a distinguished young man. He truly has the bearing of an immortal. Indeed, the immortal master may have overlooked him initially, but soon recognized his worth and took him as a disciple. Our Wang family's future rests with these 3 children. My old eyes failed to see this child's potential. Now, I see Wang Lin is every bit the equal of Wang Shuo and Wang Haouli, a dragon among men. Excellent! Third Uncle Wang, the family patriarch, stroked his white beard as he proclaimed loudly, seemingly forgetting his cruel words from months before. Wang Lin has always been clever. I said he'd be chosen by the immortals. That first time was merely a fluke. Even immortals can be mistaken, let alone us mortals. Wang Lin, please don't hold your 5th uncle's words against him. I apologize sincerely." The relatives continued their effusive praise, their attitudes completely transformed from before, each wearing warm smiles and friendly expression. Wang Lin inwardly sneered at their hypocrisy. Just then his father emerged joyfully from the house, grasping Wang Lin's hand with concern. "Iron Pillar, why have you returned? Didn't I tell you to focus on your cultivation at Heng Yue Sect and not worry about home?" Looking at his father, Wang Lin noticed the wrinkles on his face had diminished, indicating recent happiness. He smiled. "Don't worry, father. Every disciple is allowed 3 home visits per year. I'll return to the sect right after your birthday celebration." His father cast a proud glance at the surrounding relatives before leading Wang Lin inside, calling out, "Wife, look who's here." Wang Lin's mother, surrounded by female relatives engaged in casual conversation, looked up at her husband's call. She rushed over with delight, taking Wang Lin's hand and peppering him with questions about his well-being. Chapter 14: The Anomaly. A warmth filled Wang Lin's heart. After enduring a month of cold, sneers and mockery at the sect, returning home to his parents' loving care was deeply comforting. Second brother, one relative called out, "Wang Lin is now a disciple of immortals. I was blind before, saying those harsh words. Please don't take them to heart, you know me. Sharp tongue but soft heart. Everything I said was for Wang Lin's benefit." Sister-in-law, another chimed in. "My daughter was upset when she heard we hadn't arranged her betrothal. She insists on marrying your Iron Pillar. Shall we discuss the engagement?" Second brother, 5th uncle added, "I'm getting old, and the Wang family's future lies with your generation. Among all our children, I've always valued your son the most. His prospects now even surpass your elder brother's son." Wang Lin's parents beamed with pride. As the birthday feast began, relatives showered Wang Lin with endless praise. Some, emboldened by wine, loudly proclaimed they would help his father reclaim his rightful share of the family inheritance. His father merely smiled, knowing better than to take such promises seriously. More importantly, he had moved past those old grievances. His only wish now was for his son to continue thriving. The celebrations lasted all day. As relatives departed at dusk, Wang Lin surveyed the pile of gifts in their courtyard with mixed emotions. He finally understood the old saying, "When one attains the Tao, even their chickens and dogs ascend to heaven." That night, as his parents eagerly inquired about life in the sect, Wang Lin looked into their hopeful eyes and lied for the first time. He painted a picture of success and respect within the sect, describing his cultivation progress in glowing terms. His parents' faces glowed with joy at every word. For their sake, he would endure any hardship as an outer disciple, whether any mockery or scorn. After all, he had never seen his parents so happy before. 10 years, he silently vowed. "I can endure it." After spending 2 days with his parents, Wang Lin departed on the 3rd morning. The entire village came to bid him farewell, as he attached the celestial talisman to his leg and set off. The villagers' admiring words echoed in his ears long after he left. Dark clouds loomed overhead that day, pressing down like a heavy stone. Thunder rumbled intermittently as moisture thickened the mountain air, creating wisps of fog. Wang Lin quickened his pace, finally reaching Heng Yue Sect late that night. In their quarters, Jeanne, who was still snoring soundly, Wang Lin tossed and turned, unable to sleep. At midnight, as thunder crashed and lightning illuminated their room, he felt the pearl in the inner pocket his mother had sewn into his clothes. Taking out the mysterious pearl, Wang Lin examined it by lamplight. Suddenly he froze, rubbing his eyes in disbelief as he studied the cloud patterns on its surface. Something's wrong. Last time there were 5 clouds, but now there are 6. He sat up, counting carefully to confirm indeed 6 white clouds adorned the pearl. Puzzled, but increasingly fascinated by the pearl's mysteries, he carefully returned it to his pocket, extinguished the lamp, and tried to sleep despite his questions. Outside, the storm raged. Lightning flashed continuously as thunder boomed and heavy raindrops belted the earth. The windows rattled in their frames. Wang Lin woke to an unnaturally cold sensation, and what he saw left him stupefied. Sequential lightning flashes revealed a room filled with dense mist. The table, floor, and even their bedding were soaked. Yet, apart from some dampness at his chest, Wang Lin remained dry. He quickly looked over at Zhang Hu and was horrified. His roommate was covered in frost, his clothes drenched, his body rimmed with ice. Zhang Hu's face had turned purple, his teeth chattering as he lay unconscious. Jian Hu, Jian Hu. Wang Lin called out in alarm, shaking him desperately, but Jiang Hu showed no signs of waking. His breathing was barely perceptible. As Wang Lin rushed to seek help, he suddenly stopped, touching his own clothes. A strange realization struck him. Why am I nearly dry when we are in the same room? Even the soaked bedding hasn't wet my clothes except at my chest. His hand moved to his chest as understanding dawned. He quickly retrieved the mysterious pearl. In that instant, every water droplet in the room began to tremble and float upward. Even the white mist surrounding Zhang Hu condensed into floating droplets. Another lightning flash revealed the droplets transforming into crystalline points of light, all rushing toward the pearl in Wang Lin's hand. He quickly threw the pearl away, ducking to avoid the streaming water. The pearl traced an arc through the air before rolling across the floor, absorbing every droplet that struck it. Within moments, the room was completely dry. Even the sodden bedding had become crisp, and Zhang Hu's breathing steadied as his damp clothes clung to his body. Much later, though the storm continued outside, moonlight began to break through the clouds. Wang Lin cautiously retrieved the pearl and examined it closely. His eyes widened now there were 7 clouds. The night's events had filled him with both curiosity and fear regarding the pearl. If he hadn't awakened and taken it out, Zhang Hu might have frozen to death. After some contemplation, Wang Lin concluded that his own immunity likely came from regularly drinking by the pearl. The changing cloud patterns particularly intrigued him. Though tempted to test the pearl's ability to absorb more rainwater outside, he decided against it, fearing the spectacle might draw unwanted attention. After careful consideration, he returned the pearl to his inner pocket. As dawn approached and Wang Lin prepared to head to his duties, Zhang Hu suddenly bolted upright in bed, shouting, "Water!" "I'm dying of thirst." Chapter 15. Suspicion. Still groggy, Zhang Hu stumbled to the table and tried to pour from the water jug, but not a drop came out. Bewildered, he rubbed his eyes and looked around, noticing their bedding was mysteriously wrinkled and bone dry. "Wang Lin, when did you get back? Get visited by a drought spirit or something?" Wang Lin could only smile wryly as he opened the door. "I'm not sure either. It was like this when I returned. You could ask the senior disciples, but if word reaches the elders, you'll have to deal with their questions and probably an investigation." Zhang, who shook his head vigorously. "Forget it. I'm not saying anything. They'll interrogate me endlessly, and one wrong answer means a lecture." Leaving Zhang Hu behind, Wang Lin stepped outside, where light rain still fell. After brief consideration, he hurried out, taking back routes to avoid people as he headed for the east gate. Every raindrop that touched him was absorbed by the mysterious pearl, making him increasingly nervous about discovery. He'd initially planned to hide in their room, but decided it would be safer elsewhere. He made his way to his usual spot for storing the dew-collecting gourd. Thankfully, few people were about in the dim Therdan light. After carefully ensuring no one was around, he quickly hid the pearl there. With that done, he breathed easier, planning to retrieve his treasure after the rain stopped. After a final cautious look around, he headed to the labor assignment area. As he reached for a water bucket, the door to Disciple Yu's room creaked open, revealing his weasel-like face. Upon seeing Wang Lin, Liu's expression instantly transformed into one of warmth as he rushed forward to grab the bucket. "Isn't this junior brother Wang? How are you? Are your parents well? I've been thinking about you constantly during your absence, brother." Wang Lin froze, recognizing this sudden fawning behavior identical to his relative's recent transformation. But he couldn't fathom why Yu had changed his tune so dramatically. "Senior brother Liu, my parents are fine. Thank you for your concern," Wang Lin replied cautiously, unable to guess Yu's motives. "Junior brother, you needn't wake up so early any more," Liu continued enthusiastically. "I was only joking before about filling 10 water vats daily. One is plenty, and don't worry about filling it completely, just go eat when it's mealtime. If anyone gives you trouble, just mention my name. That'll sort things out." He patted his chest proudly. Wang Lin gave him an odd look before asking hesitantly, "Senior brother, do you need me to do something for you?" Liu's face immediately showed feigned indignation. "Junior brother, why so distant? Am I really such a petty person? You're my junior brother. It's only natural that I look after you. Just go through the motions with your daily tasks. Your performance depends on my word anyway. It's raining today, so take it easy. Oh, and elder son was looking for you a few days ago. Now that you're back, you should report to him." He watched Wang Lin's reaction from the corner of his eye. Wang Lin pondered briefly before allowing a knowing smile to play across his face. He could guess what had happened. Elder son must have come looking for him after he left, causing Liu to jump to conclusions. Playing along, he merely grunted an acknowledgement, mimicking Liu's past behavior. Seeing Wang Lin's expression, Liu's heart skipped a beat, further convincing himself that this formerly worthless disciple had somehow gained an elder's favor. Otherwise, how could he act so arrogant? The boy seemed the vindictive type. He'd surely seek revenge for past mistreatment. In 13 years as a registered disciple, 6 of them managing labor assignments, Liu had never seen an elder personally seek out a registered disciple. Even having an inner disciple come looking was considered remarkable. Though he'd considered the possibility that Wang Lin had offended the elder, he couldn't be certain. After years in Heng Yue Sect, he understood how deep its waters ran, and as a mere registered disciple, he couldn't afford to take chances. Making up his mind, he pulled a yellow paper from his robes and thrust it at Wang Lin. "Junior brother, I felt an instant connection when I first saw you. Please accept this small gift. If you refuse—" Before he could finish, Wang Lin snatched the paper. He already noticed it was a celestial talisman for disciples' home visits. "How kind, senior brother. I won't refuse such goodwill. But elder son is waiting. Let's catch up tomorrow," Wang Lin said with a slight smile. Liu nodded eagerly. "Of course the elder is important. Hurry along, junior brother." Though outwardly calm, Wang Lin's mind churned with questions. Why would elder son personally seek him out? He walked unhurriedly toward the main courtyard, considering various possibilities but remaining puzzled. Could he have discovered my mysterious pearl? Wang Lin's steps faltered. After some thought, he decided that avoiding the meeting would only raise suspicions. Better to play ignorant after all. The pearl wasn't on him. With this resolve, he strode forward. Soon he reached the main courtyard. After stating his business, he was met by the same white-robed young man, who remarked with surprising mockery, "What, another home visit?" Wang Lin's eyebrows rose, but before he could respond, elder son's voice carried from within the courtyard, "Bring him to me immediately. Don't delay." The white-robed youth smirked, giving Wang Lin a meaningful look before turning to lead the way without another word. Wang Lin followed in silence. At elder son's residence the young man excused himself, but not before giving Wang Lin another strange, evaluating look. Wang Lin's heart tightened with tension as he pushed open the garden gate. As he entered, an elderly man emerged from the pavilion. Deep wrinkles lined his face, but his eyes were bright and sharp as they swept over Wang Lin with a cold expression. Chapter 16 Disciple. Under that penetrating gaze, Wang Lin felt as if his entire being had become transparent, thoroughly exposed to the elder's scrutiny. The elder furrowed his brow, finding nothing unusual about Wang Lin, and asked sternly, "When did you return?" Wang Lin's heart pounded from that searching look. "Disciple returned last night," he quickly replied. "When I heard from Senior Brother Liu at the labor assignment area this morning that you were looking for me, I came immediately." Elder Sun's expression darkened. Without another word, he grabbed Wang Lin and stepped onto manifested seven-colored clouds, heading straight for Wang Lin's quarters. The speed was so great that Wang Lin could barely breathe, though fortunately the journey was brief. Upon arrival, Elder Sun tossed Wang Lin aside and swept his spiritual sense through the room. "Oh!" Elder Sun moved to Wang Lin's bedside, reaching down to pull a gourd filled with spring water from among his belongings. Wang Lin maintained his composure outwardly while his mind raced to construct a plausible explanation. After examining the gourd carefully for some time, Elder Sun's expression shifted subtly. "Wang Lin, what's in this gourd?" he asked in a low voice. Wang Lin immediately played naive. "Elder, it contains mountain spring water. It's quite miraculous. Whenever I'm exhausted, drinking it instantly refreshes me. I read in books as a child that anything associated with immortals is beneficial. I never imagined even spring water could be so amazing. If you want some, Elder, there are 10 large vats at the labor assignment area, all filled with water I carried from the mountain." Elder Sun removed the stopper and brought the gourd to his nose. His expression changed dramatically. "Who asked about spring water?" he demanded urgently. "Tell me where you found this gourd." Quickly, Wang Lin feigned confusion. "Is something wrong with the gourd, Elder? I saw it floating downstream while carrying water and thought it looked nice, so I fished it out." Elder Sun narrowed his eyes and gave Wang Lin a meaningful look. Examining the gourd, he thought to himself, "This gourd is extraordinarily rich in spiritual energy. Though mortals can't absorb the ki from the water inside, drinking it would indeed be invigorating. He didn't lie about that. Still, it's wasted on him. If used to refine pills, the effects would be remarkable. The withering of the blue thread grass and purple night flowers might be related to this gourd, perhaps some principle of mutual generation and restriction. But that would require testing to confirm." Suddenly, his expression shifted as he examined the gourd more closely. His face darkened as he glared at Wang Lin. "How dare you deceive an elder? Perhaps you've grown tired of your place at Heng Yue Sect." Wang Lin's face showed bewilderment. "Elder, I haven't deceived you. There really are 10 large vats of spring water." Elder Sun cut him off with a cold laugh. "Stop playing fool. I'm asking about this gourd. The vine was clearly broken recently, yet you claim you found it in the spring. This is your last chance. Wang Lin, tell me where you got this gourd, or I expel you from Heng Yue Sect today." Anger flashed across Wang Lin's face as he assumed a desperate expression. "Then expel me," he shouted. "All I do here is carry water, and with 10 vats to fill, I often go a week without eating. If not for the sweet potatoes my mother packed, I would have starved long ago. This isn't cultivation, it's pure torture. I finally find one good thing in the water, and you not only want to take it but accuse me of lying. What do I know about vines on the gourd? Maybe someone else broke it off before throwing it in the stream. Who am I supposed to ask about that?" Elder Sun glanced at the remaining sweet potatoes in Wang Lin's belongings, then at the gourd. After some thought, he inwardly sneered, "I must have this gourd." But forcefully taking a registered disciple's treasure and driving him away would be scandalous. my reputation in the sect would be ruined. Moreover, if my fellow disciples learned of this, they would surely come to claim their share, and I lack the power to keep them at bay. I cannot let them know. Besides, this boy still won't tell the truth. There must be more gourds. If I could obtain them all, refining pills would significantly advance my cultivation." His expression suddenly changed to one of surprise as he sighed. "I had no idea you were suffering so, unable to eat for a week at a time. Now that I know, I'll certainly address this. After all, even registered disciples are part of Heng Yue Sect." Seeing Wang Lin still fuming, he inwardly sneered while speaking kindly. "Wang Lin, I'll take this gourd, but I won't leave you empty-handed. Would you like to be my servant boy?" Wang Lin replied sullenly, "No. A servant boy is still a servant. If my father learned I became someone's slave, he'd beat me to death." Elder son nearly lost control of his temper, wanting to strike Wang Lin dead on the spot. Though he ranked lowest among second-generation disciples, even registered disciples usually fought for the chance to become his servant. Suppressing his rage, he said irritably, "Fine. I'll take you as my disciple. I'll speak with the sect leader about this now. Pack your things and wait in my garden." With that, he swept his sleeve and departed on his auspicious clouds, heading for the sect leader's residence. After he left, Wang Lin's expression darkened. He sneered inwardly at the elder's ulterior motives, claiming to take him as a disciple while actually seeking more gourd. After brief consideration, Wang Lin smiled slightly. If the elder wanted gourds, the mountains had plenty. He could easily create more by soaking them with the pearl. For now, this was his chance to become an inner disciple and truly cultivate. Excited by this prospect, he packed his belongings, left some sweet potatoes for Jean Hu, and walked unhurriedly toward the main courtyard. This time he entered without announcing himself. The white-robed youth sat cross-legged in a corner tree. Merely glancing down without stopping him, he had already received word from the sect leader about elder son taking Wang Lin as a disciple. He muttered contemptuously to himself, "A worthless master takes a worthless disciple. How fitting." Chapter 17. Cultivation. After a brief wait in the garden, elder son returned with a dark expression. His heart burned with anger. He had endured no small amount of mockery from his fellow disciples while discussing this matter with the sect leader. He silently vowed, "Once I get all the gourds and refine them into pills, let's see if you can still laugh when my cultivation soars." Upon seeing Wang Lin in the garden, his irritation flared. "Wang Lin, from today forward, you are the disciple of Sun Dazhu. Cultivate diligently and don't shame your master's name." He tossed over a flat pouch and continued, "This is the identity token of an inner disciple and a storage pouch. It can hold many items. Your clothes and cultivation manuals are already inside. See for yourself." Wang Lin hurriedly picked it up, his heart racing with excitement. His parents' hopeful faces flashed through his mind. He could finally begin true cultivation. This time he sincerely called Sun Dazhu master. Sun Dazhu grunted in acknowledgment before adding, "You'll live in the back room from now on. Don't leave without my permission." To demonstrate his point, he picked up a stone and threw it at the garden gate. A purple light flashed, instantly pulverizing the stone into powder that dissipated in the air. With that display complete, Sun Dazhu gave Wang Lin a cold smile before retiring to his quarters. Wang Lin's pupils contracted as he inwardly shuddered. Clutching the storage pouch, he entered his assigned room. Inside was nothing but a small bed, but Wang Lin didn't mind. He sat down to examine the pouch. The grey pouch appeared ordinary, but when Wang Lin emptied it onto the ground, several items fell out: a reed inner disciple's robe and a thread-bound manual. Delighted, Wang Lin eagerly grabbed the manual. The first page read, 3 articles of key condensation. He read until deep into the night by lamplight. Closing the book, he finally had some understanding of cultivation. The 3 articles described 3 levels of the most fundamental techniques. According to the text, key condensation had 15 layers in total, and only after reaching the 3rd layer could one receive advanced techniques. Heat condensation focused on breathing in the world's spiritual energy, accumulating it within one's body to transform one's mortal constitution and build a foundation for future advancement. This stage best tested a cultivator's innate talent. Those with abundant spiritual roots could absorb spiritual energy quickly, naturally accelerating their progress. But those with ordinary talent might never advance beyond the third layer, some couldn't even reach the first. Treasuring this manual, Wang Lin immediately memorized the methods for the first 3 layers. He sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began breathing as instructed. 1 long inhalation followed by 3 short exhalations. The long breath drew in spiritual energy, while the 3 short breaths took only a third of the inhalation time. This unnatural breathing pattern was designed to absorb spiritual energy as efficiently as possible. The manual noted that practitioners typically felt sensations like crawling ants during their first attempt, a sign of spiritual energy entering the body. One should stay relaxed, imagining oneself becoming void and merging with heaven and earth. After a long while, Wang Lin found not only did he lack any such sensations, but the strange breathing pattern left him somewhat breathless. Wang Lin sighed softly. He knew inner disciples were chosen for their abundant spiritual roots. This manual was written for such talents. With his ordinary aptitude, he couldn't compare to them in cultivation. Yet he refused to be discouraged. After catching his breath, he continued his practice. The night passed slowly. By dawn, Wang Lin still hadn't felt any spiritual energy enter his body. After a sleepless night, his head felt heavy as he stumbled out of bed and through the door. Outside, gentle breezes carried medicinal fragrances. Several deep breaths eased his fatigue somewhat, though he missed his spring water gourd. A few sips that water would have instantly relieved his exhaustion. But now wasn't the time for rash moves. He felt confident about his hiding place for the mysterious pearl and dew-gourd secluded spot he'd found after searching half the mountain. Even if someone happened to pass by, they'd never discover his treasures. Walking through the herb garden, Wang Lin found an empty spot and sat down to practice. Soon he felt an extremely faint sensation like crawling ants. Just as his excitement peaked, his master's voice rang out, "Wang Lin, what are you doing? Get out of there, you're forbidden from practicing in the herb garden." Wang Lin opened his eyes to find Sun Dazhu glaring at him darkly. He rose silently and left the garden. Sun Dazhu snorted. "Quite the spot you found. This herb garden has the densest spiritual energy in my compound. If you absorb it all and these precious herbs die, your little life wouldn't be enough compensation." Wang Lin glanced at Sun Dazhu and respectfully replied, "Disciple was ignorant. It won't happen again." Sun Dazhu's expression softened slightly. His gaze shifted as he suddenly said, "However, if you can bring me another gourd, I can't let you practice in the garden, but I can give you a low-grade spirit's tone. That would make your key condensation much easier." Wang Lin lowered his head, a flash of mockery crossing his eyes. "Disciple can check the spring again. With luck, I might find another." Sun Dazhu pondered briefly, his eyes glinting as he nodded. "Yes, go look. Remember, bring me another gourd, and you'll get a low-grade spirit's tone." Wang Lin raised his head to look at Sun Dazhu. "Master truly means this? A spirit's tone for a gourd?" Sun Dazhu's face lit up. "Absolutely. As soon as I see the gourd, you'll have your spirit's tone." Wang Lin inwardly sneered while maintaining an utterly respectful demeanor as he nodded in agreement. Sun Dazhu formed a hand seal and muttered incantations. With a wave of his arm, the garden gate creaked open. Stroking his beard, he smiled. "Off you go then. Return quickly." Chapter 18 The Gourd. As Wang Lin left the garden, his red inner disciple robes drew every outer disciple's attention. Their initial looks of envy quickly transformed into strange expressions, then deep jealousy, upon recognizing him. "So he's the new inner disciple the sect leader announced yesterday. First he gets in by attempting suicide. Now who knows what method he used to enter the inner sect. Talk about dumb luck. Isn't it obvious? He probably grove lead at the elder's feet, doing all sorts of degrading things to win his favor. How despicable, indeed. Look at his foolish face, how surely rank classed among inner disciple. Cultivation isn't so simple. Such trash will always be trash, no matter what position they scheme their way into. Nobody respects someone like that. Damn it, I've been an outer disciple for years and never seen someone so shameless. What's the world coming to? How could an elder choose him? I'm better than him in every way. It's infuriating. For years? I've been here 12, but we earned our positions through real ability. Th. Inner disciples often do each other well. See him make a fool of himself soon enough. Wang Lin coldly swept his gaze over the gossiping faces, memorizing each one. Though he lacked strength now, once he gained power, he would repay each slight. Soon he reached the east gate and followed the path to the spring. He splashed the cold water on his face, instantly feeling refreshed. After drinking several mouthfuls, he sat down unhurriedly to practice cultivation. In a nearby tree, elder son crouched with furrowed brows, muttering, "Little bastard, claims he's looking for gourds, but actually sits here waiting for one to float downstream." He had secretly followed Wang Lin, hoping to discover where he found the gourds, only to watch him sit down to practice by the spring. Though the spiritual energy here was slightly richer than in his room, Wang Lin couldn't replicate the sensation he felt in the herb garden. Still, he reasoned that the key condensation stage essentially measured accumulated spiritual energy. While his pu-raptitude meant he absorbed less energy with each breath, he could compensate with time. Wang Lin's guess was quite accurate. Key condensation was exactly that, gathering spiritual energy to transform one's constitution and build a foundation for core formation. He continued practicing until noon without feeling the ant-crawling sensation. Standing by the spring, he looked around, knowing elder son wouldn't have let him out without following to monitor him. Feeling his stomach growl, he meandered back toward the sect. Elder son was furious after watching his stupid disciple waste an entire morning. "Little beast," he muttered, "I'll play this game with you. If not today, then a month. If not a month, then a year. You must have more than one gourd." He rushed back to the herb garden ahead of Wang Lin. When Wang leisurely returned, elder son stroked his beard and forced a smile. "My disciple, did you find any gourds this morning?" Wang Lin sighed and shook his head. "Master, I waited by the spring all morning, but saw none. I'll look again this afternoon. Perhaps I'll have better luck then." Elder son thought to himself, "You spent the whole morning meditating with closed eyes. You wouldn't have seen a gourd floating right past your nose." But he said kindly, "Very well, Wang Lin. Go eat first, then continue your search." Wang Lin entered his room to find a new table laden with 4 dishes and soup, a tempting mix of meat and vegetables. Without questioning its appearance, he quickly devoured everything, even drinking the soup, before lying down for a short nap. Elder son's ghost-like figure appeared, his face darkened, eyes venomous. "Those sect rules prevent me from using poison," he thought. "I can add herbs that hinder spiritual energy absorption. With your mediocre talent plus my herbs, you'll never reach the 3rd layer of key condensation. You'll be under my thumb for life." An hour later, Wang Lin woke, smoothed his clothes, and returned to the spring to practice. As sunset approached, he wandered around the spring before heading into the dense mountain forest. Elder son perked up, silently following. Wang Lin meandered through the mountains, looking around until his face suddenly lit up. He approached some wild gourd vines, picked a decent-looking small gourd, and hurried away. After he left, elder son examined the spot with confusion. The gourds looked completely ordinary. Puzzled, he picked several, memorized the location, and vanished. Wang Lin soon returned to the herb garden, ignoring the outer disciples' gossip along the way. Inside, he found elder son glaring at him darkly. Wang Lin respectfully offered the gourd. "Master, I had better luck this afternoon. Though I found nothing by the spring, I discovered many in the mountains. I chose this one because it most resembles my previous gourd." Elder son barely contained his rage. Forcing a stiff smile, he took the gourd and tossed it aside without a glance. "I want gourds filled with spiritual energy like your previous one. What use is this wild gourd to me? His final words erupted in an angry roar. His frustration had reached its limit. He'd wasted an entire day monitoring this brat, even foolishly picking some worthless gourds himself. Chapter 19 Dismissal. The mere thought of those gourds infuriated elder son further. He had spent considerable time examining them, turning them over and over, but they were clearly ordinary. He had even emptied out the seeds and filled them with spring water, only to face mockery from his fellow elders who witnessed this. Wang Lin inwardly sneered, but maintained a meek expression. I don't really understand what spiritual energy is. You said you'd give me a spirit's tone for finding gourds. Perhaps you could explain what spiritual energy feels like. Elder Sun felt dizzy with frustration. He studied Wang Lin carefully, doubting his earlier assumptions for the first time. Were there really many such gourds as he had suspected, or had this foolish boy simply stumbled upon a single precious one by chance? After some thought, he realized Wang Lin's words made sense. Only those who had reached the first layer of Qi condensation could sense spiritual energy. He regretted adding those cultivation-inhibiting herbs to Wang Lin's food. The boy's aptitude was already poor, making the first layer virtually impossible to achieve. With those herbs it might take 30 or 50 years. Sighing inwardly with disappointment, elder son still couldn't let go. After some hesitation, he took out a low-grade spirit stone from his storage pouch and tossed it to Wang Lin. Here's the promised spirit's tone. Go practice and reach the first layer of Qi condensation quickly. Wang Lin gratefully accepted and returned to his room. Elder Sun stood motionless for a long while before sighing deeply. You can't catch a wolf without sacrificing some bait. I'll have to use my last resort to test if he's lying. Once he reaches the first layer and enters the realm of cultivation, I can use soul-searching techniques on him even at the cost of my cultivation regressing. This won't violate the heavenly laws that forbid using soul-search on mortals before the core formation stage. Soul-searching was a simple but cruel immortal technique. Most victims died immediately, their souls scattered. The best outcome was lifelong idiocy. These devastating effects carried restrictions. Using it on mortals before reaching core formation would result in karmic backlash. Between cultivators, these restrictions didn't apply, though one could only use it 3 times in life, each use causing cultivation regression. Wang Lin sat cross-legged in his room, examining the spirit's tone. Though it appeared ordinary, holding it brought mental clarity. He closed his eyes to practice. After a night passed without any sign of spiritual energy entering his body, Wang Lin sighed ruefully. Just then, elder Sun entered with a bowl of black liquid, his face dark. Drink it. Wang Lin hesitated, eyeing the bowl cautiously. Master, what is this? His cautious expression instantly ignited elder Sun's anger. Would I harm you? Just drink it. If I weren't trying to help you reach the first layer quickly, would I waste precious herbs staying up all night to make this medicine? Seeing elder Sun's threatening expression, Wang Lin held his breath and downed the bowl in one gulp. Immediately, a scorching sensation rose from his stomach and spread throughout his body. His mouth felt parched, as if internal flames were consuming him. His vision darkened, the stone bowl slipping from his hands as he nearly lost consciousness. Quick practice breath circulation. I'll help you absorb it. Elder Sun reluctantly placed his hand on Wang Lin's chest. A cooling sensation spread from the contact point. Wang Lin's mind cleared, and he instantly began the breathing exercises. Elder Sun painfully glanced at the fallen bowl, grumbling as he took out more low-grade spirit stones from his storage pouch and placed them around Wang Lin. Boy, I've invested heavily in you. You'll repay everything some day. Soon. The faint sensation of crawling ants appeared. Elder Sun clearly felt spiritual energy from the medicine beginning to condense in Wang Lin's body, and his expression brightened. But suddenly, a turbid energy emerged from Wang Lin's body, easily dispersing the condensing spiritual energy. All their efforts were wasted. Elder Sun's face turned bitter. He recognized the turbid energy. It came from the spirit-dissolving herb he had fed Wang Lin yesterday. After several more attempts, the medicinal energy completely dispersed without forming any spiritual energy. Elder Sun sighed deeply, releasing his grip and staring at Wang Lin with complex emotions. Wang Lin opened his eyes, feeling light and comfortable. Before he could express gratitude, Elder Sun departed with a bitter expression and a wave of his sleeve. Confused by his master's reaction, Wang Lin stretched and walked to the door, calling out, "Master, I am going to the spring to try my luck today." Though Elder Sun remained silent, the garden gate opened soundlessly. As soon as Wang Lin left, Elder Sun secretly followed again. A month passed quickly. Every day Wang Lin meditated by the spring while Elder Sun watched from hiding, growing increasingly disappointed and dispirited. Throughout the month, Elder Sun provided various medicines, but spiritual energy never condensed. His temper grew worse by the day. Most importantly, Elder Sun discovered that the original gourd's spiritual energy had gradually dissipated. Within a month it was completely gone. The spring water inside remained ordinary water, without any spiritual properties. The gourd had become indistinguishable from any wild gourd. After careful analysis, Elder Sun formed a new theory. The gourd wasn't inherently special, but had undergone some unique transformation that temporarily enriched it with spiritual energy. Wang Lin had likely found it by chance and probably didn't have others. This theory seemed increasingly correct, much to his distress. He had wasted a month doing nothing but surveillance and brewing medicines, all for nothing. In his anger, he summoned Wang Lin, berated him thoroughly, and dismissed him from the main courtyard. The mere sight of Wang Lin now irritated him. Preferring to avoid the aggravation, he soon forgot about his disciple entirely. He reasoned that despite a month of medicinal treatments, it would take 8 or 10 years for Wang Lin to reach the first layer of qi condensation, unless he was willing to continue sacrificing precious herbs on this worthless disciple. Chapter 20. 9 Clouds. Wang Lin welcomed the solitude that came with his dismissal from the main courtyard. Though outer disciples' mockery reached his ears, he paid it no mind. The past month had given him a clear understanding of the cultivation path, 5 major realms: qi condensation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, and spirits evering. In all of Heng Yue Sect, only 2 masters had reached core formation. These powerful cultivators dwelled in seclusion on the spiritually rich rear mountain, emerging only for matters of great importance. Even foundation establishment cultivators number less than 10. These elite disciples formed the sect's backbone, enjoying privileges like unrestricted access to spirits, tones, and magical treasures. The rest, like Elder Sun, remained at various levels of qi condensation. He had only reached the 5th layer himself. The path of immortal cultivation demanded immense time investment. For those with lesser talent, even decades might prove insufficient for significant progress. If qi condensation proved so challenging, the higher realms seemed nearly impossible, requiring not only abundant spiritual energy, but also tremendous luck and insight. Understanding spiritual energy's crucial role, Wang Lin yearned to retrieve his mysterious pearl. Though he still couldn't absorb spiritual energy directly, he believed that regularly drinking spring water infused by the pearl would accelerate his progress. After all, qi condensation was essentially the accumulation of spiritual energy. Judging by Elder Sun's intense interest, the pearl-infused water must have been exceptionally rich in spiritual energy. Even more exciting were the 3 gourds of dew he had hidden with the pearl, surely even more potent than the spring water. Their effects might surpass or even exceed the month of medicinal treatments. Thus, Wang Lin secretly rejoiced at escaping Elder Sun's surveillance. As an inner disciple, though banned from the main courtyard, he could choose residence in any of the 5 secondary courtyards. He selected a secluded dwelling in the fire courtyard near the east gate. The past month had taught him much about inner disciples' privileges, including their monthly allowance. On the 10th of each month, they could collect a fragment of a low-grade spirit's tone into spirit-gathering pill from the main courtyard's pill chamber. 10 fragments could be exchanged for a complete spirit's tone through one's master. After settling into his new quarters, Wang Lin resisted the urge to immediately retrieve the pearl, wary of Elder Sun's potential surveillance. He maintained his routine of daily spring visits and nightly meditation. Indeed, Elder son did watch for another 10 days before finally abandoning hope. A month later, under cover of darkness, Wang Lin carefully retrieved the pearl and gourds from their hiding place, securing them in his storage pouch where they wouldn't draw attention. After several days passed without incident, he felt safe enough to cease his spring visits and focus on studying the pearl. Examining it closely, he noticed the cloud patterns had increased from 7 to 9, likely from absorbing the mountain's heavy moisture. The 3 gourds revealed their contents had transformed. The dew had thickened considerably, particularly the early morning dew, which had become almost gelatinous. Looking between the pearl and gourds, an idea struck him. If the pearl needed moisture to generate clouds, would using all 3 gourds of dew force the appearance of a 10th cloud? His heart raced at the possibility. The small pearl's surface was nearly covered with 9 intricate clouds, leaving only a thumbnail-sized space. Wang Lin suspected this might be where the 10th cloud would form. He wondered what changes the 10th cloud might bring, as the pearl's surface had no apparent room for an 11th. But today was collection day at the main courtyard. As dusk approached, Wang Lin carefully stored the pearl and gourds in his pouch and headed out. Now familiar with the sect's layout, he quickly reached the main courtyard and hurried toward the pill chamber in the fading light. Before he arrived, a familiar voice reached his ears. "Senior Sister Zhu, Master ordered me to seclude myself for 3 months to break through to the first layer of key condensation, but thoughts of you kept disturbing my focus. Wanting to see you pushed me to succeed. I finally broke through last night. I immediately went to the mountains to pick these flowers for you. See how beautiful the petals are? A great serpent guarded them, and I was wounded defeating it. Look at my arm." Wang Lin's steps faltered, his brow furrowing as he continued forward with a cold inner smile. A clear, melodious female voice responded, "Senior Brother Wang, my family has practiced medicine for generations. These are just common morning glory flowers. I see them all over the mountain, and I've never heard of snakes guarding them. If that were Wu, our Heng Yue mountains would be overrun with serpents. Senior Sister Zhu, don't believe him." As Wang Lin entered the pill chamber's courtyard, he surveyed the 4 people present, 2 men and 2 women, all in red robes. One of the men, handsome and dignified, was about to protest when his eyes fixed on the entrance in disbelief. "Wang Lin, why are you here? Shouldn't you be home helping your father with carpentry?" "Wang Lin? Ah, so you're the one who gained entry by attempting suicide and became elder son's disciple through flattery," exclaimed a young woman with a long, glossy black braid and bright eyes beneath thick brows. The other 2 stared at Wang Lin in surprise, particularly the remaining woman, whose childlike eyes, framed by long lashes, sparkled with keen interest like crystal grapes. Wang Lin's expression remained neutral as he surveyed the group. He recognized the critical voice as belonging to the girl who had passed the talent test months ago. By extension, the other young woman must be Senior Sister Zhu, recipient of a dubious flower tribute.